Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. It's been a long time and it's good to be back. I hope you're all doing well. Today we're going to be talking about Kratom and anxiety and how Kratom can help with anxiety. Just a reminder, I am not a doctor and I am not a chemist. I do not pretend to be either one of those things. I do not encourage the use of any substances, legal or illegal, and this video is strictly for educational and entertainment purposes only. So, Kratom, as many of you know, is native to Southeast Asia, to my understanding, and is a naturally occurring plant that's in the same family as the coffee bean. So with Kratom, it is powerful in its ability to calm, give people a sense of well-being, and help with pain. Of course, anecdotally and what evidence we have from studies from other countries. Obviously, there aren't really any studies from the United States because it is not an approved therapy. However, there are some limited studies which people can view for themselves. So, in terms of pain relief, it is an extremely useful drug. I'm going to say drug. I understand that it's not labeled as a drug, and drugs are mainly just a classification, because classifications can vary wildly, and some supplements should be qualified as drugs, and some drugs could be more qualified as supplements. But going back to the point, it is an extremely useful drug for pain. Again, drug, supplement, whatever you want to call it. It has also been helping people with PTSD, diarrhea, and I'll explain that one in a bit, and anxiety. So anxiety is the one I mainly want to focus on today. I recently suffered an extreme amount of panic attacks. I had a prescription for a compound known as Hydroxyzine. It is a compound that is an antihistamine, meaning it's in a similar class of drugs to something like a Benadryl. For most people, they use it to help them sleep. It, for me, just made me extremely tired and didn't actually help with the panic attacks. So Kratom is what did. Kratom actually gave me a sense of calm, well-being, and that everything was going to be okay. It also helped me with my cognitive behavioral therapy too, when a intrusive thought, a thought that was very disturbing to me and was alarming, it helped me to have a sense of calm, and it was okay artificially, so that I was able to later be like, okay, having that thought is okay. Doesn't mean anything, let it flow down the river of thoughts. And that's very important, as many of you know, for cognitive behavioral therapy, especially with persons with OCD like I have. So, granted, no doctors of mine, sorry, that's not what I meant to say. I used this because the hydroxyzine wasn't working in the way I wanted it to. I had also tried Buspar with, again, aid of my doctor, and Buspar did not work. Hydroxyzine I mainly take if I need it right then. I need to be calm and basically falling asleep right now. The only problem is it has an extreme hangover effect for me, and I'll feel tired for the next day or two. So Kratom gives me this extreme sense of calm and well-being. That's part of the reason people like to take it every day, and that's part of the reason I think that people find it to be addictive. I don't take it every day, and I don't really like to take it every day. There's certain medications I can't take it with Kratom because they interact poorly, or they're just flat out dangerous to take. Always know medication interactions. I just can't say that enough. I say it in all my videos. Know your medication interactions. For example, Zoloft and Kratom have medication interactions because they both get metabolized by the same one of the same compounds or same enzymes in the liver. And because of this enzyme in the liver, I can't remember the specific name. It starts with a CYP246, I believe it is, but regardless, I may have butchered that. Because of that, if you take Kratom with Zoloft every single day together, what'll happen is the Kratom will be able to be digested, or metabolized, I should say, and the Zoloft will slowly build up, and then you can get serotonin syndrome, which can be mild to deadly, and so that's extreme, and you always need to know that your interactions. This happens with a lot of other medications that get metabolized by the liver as well. This happens with Adderall. Notice I may have mentioned at the beginning of this video that people use Adderall and Kratom not on the same day, however, because they are both, at least not within the same half-life of each other, because they both get metabolized by that main component in the liver, the one I mentioned before. Again, I may have butchered the actual enzyme, but that means that they may rise in the body. They also both act on similar pathways in terms of dopamine. So that means you can get a very bad effect. You can make a 2 + 2 = 12 effect. You don't want an over amplification of drugs in your body. So that's just extremely important to know. This happens a lot when people take certain medications with things like grapefruit juice, because grapefruit juice allows a lot of medications to be hyper-absorbed into the body, thus making them ill. So it's very important to know things like that. So, why does Kratom ease anxiety? There's not a ton of research that I have found on this, but I do have some theories and some reports that I can relay to you. Most people, when they go on opioids, get a sense of calm. Now, opioids come with extreme side effects, so no one's ever given opioids out as an anxiety reliever, at least not in modern times, because one, they're addictive, and your tolerance builds up very fast. And two, I hope I said one and not A, but two, it has respiratory depressive effects, meaning that you can essentially die from taking too much. That's what an overdose is, essentially. At least to my understanding. There are, I'm sure, dozens of other components to this. Again, I'm not a doctor. I'm just fascinated by pharmacology. So when you take Kratom, it's different from opioids, from pharmacological opioids, but it still acts on the opioid receptor. Opioids themselves love to go into a receptor and hit it over and over and over and over again. Over time, your body is going to make less and less of those receptors because it realizes tons and tons of things are coming in, and it's not good for your body. Now, what happens with the specific opioid alkaloids that are in Kratom? So, obviously, you can get varying effects based on how much of Kratom you take, and if you're taking certain strands, which I'll talk about a little bit more later, but it attaches to the opioid receptor and then just kind of hangs out. Sometimes it'll even stay in the opioid receptor, to my understanding. Sometimes it'll just hang around the opioid receptor, activating it every once in a while. Now, that's very different, and it helps to decrease tolerance, as well as the fact that it does not impact the respiratory system from all the data that we have now, meaning that if you take too much, it should not be deadly. There has not been a single confirmed case of taking only Kratom and dying from it. There have been many cases of polypharmacy, meaning or multi-drug deaths, oftentimes with drugs that are multi-related to the liver. So let's say somebody took like a bunch of stimulants that all get metabolized in the liver by the same thing and took Kratom and they died of a heart attack. No duh, because your liver is going to not be able to metabolize them all at once because there's only so much a liver can do with that one metabolite, specific metabolite, and then the stimulants are going to build up in your system and you can have a heart attack. So logically, it makes sense that it's, as long as you're being cautious and you know drug interactions with Kratom, you should be okay. Obviously, always talk to your doctor, and the doctor will know best most of the time. Now, to be clear, Kratom was almost banned a little while ago. I don't agree with this. I don't agree with banning any substance for that matter. I think it demonizes people, and I think it makes drugs more dangerous. That goes back to a little bit more of a philosophical reasoning, but I don't want to get any sort of politicalness on my channel. The only thing is that Kratom has helped so many people in the market that it's in now, and to get it into either a prescription or to where they wanted to schedule it as a Schedule 1 drug, meaning it had no medicinal purposes, is catastrophic. Most people know that it's almost impossible to get it off of Schedule 1 once it's been there. To my understanding, it was Schedule 1, not Schedule 3. But back to the point at hand, it is important that Kratom remain legal, in my opinion. And not only does it help people with PTSD that is also associated with panic attacks, and it helps with that calming effect, like I said, it doesn't build up tolerance as crazily. Now, I am personally a proponent of not taking Kratom every day if you can avoid it. Now, some people have chronic pain. They can't avoid it. They have to take it every day, otherwise they'll be on opioids, like prescription opioids. That I understand. And to those people, I would say look up the things that can potentiate Kratom, like taking magnesium, and maybe take a day off every once in a while so that you don't eventually get a terrible withdrawal when you quit. Because Kratom, like almost everything in this world, if you take it every day, your body will have a withdrawal effect. Now, that's not to say Kratom is a demon. I mean, Adderall. If you stop Adderall at random and you've been taking it for years, you will get a withdrawal effect. You will get it from coffee. It all depends on varying degrees. It's not as severe as an actual opioid dependence and withdrawal, to my understanding. Sometimes those can be so severe that people actually die from the withdrawals. That could be completely wrong. I want to be clear, but that's to my understanding. And that, with Kratom, doesn't really happen. So, this opioid receptor, hanging around the opioid receptor, makes you calm, makes you feel like maybe you just worked out, because it's almost similar to that feeling of, oh man, I just had a really nice workout and I'm relaxing now. And I did my post-stretching and I'm breathing deep and I'm breathing slow and I feel fantastic. And Kratom helps a lot for people with anxiety in that type of manner, meaning that short-term burst anxiety, maybe you're going to experience a lot of anxiety. Maybe you're going to a social event and you have social anxiety. Kratom is often used as a quote-unquote social lubricant. That word is kind of, a weird one, or that phrasing, I should say, but it is what it is. And the fact of the matter is that same opioid receptor management also helps, funny enough, with diarrhea, and can ironically help with people who have anxious diarrhea with IBS. So when you take Kratom, it acts on the opioid receptor. The opioid receptor in the intestines make your intestines slow down, and that makes them calm, and it essentially makes them digest even slower. That's why when you go on prescription opioids like morphine and Dilaudid and Percocet, you can get constipation, sometimes severe constipation, because your body is going like, holy crap, now it's like moving really slow through your gut. And the thing is, for people who have maybe chronic diarrhea and have anxiety as well, or maybe they have diarrhea that's dependent on social anxiety, maybe taking Kratom right before socially anxious situations would be beneficial for them. That might be actually extremely beneficial for them, because it would slow down the rate of progression for them to possibly have diarrhea, and it would give them a sense of calming. Again, this is dose dependent. So going back to the veins, or the different kinds of Kratom. There's green vein, white vein, and red vein. I believe there's also a yellow vein, but I don't know much about it. So when it comes to white vein is considered the stimulatory, dopaminergic, Adderall-like vein. Obviously, these all have a lot in common. The difference is they all have the same alkaloids, but they have different collections of those alkaloids. This one white vein typically has more of a upregulating, stimulatory alkaloid effect. Green vein has a mix. For some people, again, this isn't for everybody, because some people might find that white vein is great for pain and not for stimulatory effects. It's all individual to the person. But green vein is considered to be a mix between sedative and anxious, and sorry, I lost my train of thought, and causing an upregulation in the dopaminergic cholinergic system, making you focus, making you more alert. So that one I personally see as very dose dependent. I've taken a lot of green vein Kratom. That's typically the one that I found the best results with. And when I take lower doses of it, I get a little too much hyperness. And when I take higher doses of it, around maybe 5 to 8 grams, which is kind of a hefty dose if you're getting up towards 8 grams, at least for me it is, I find an extreme sense of calm and an extreme calming effect. And the one that I've found to be very calming is red vein. Red vein is considered to be the most calming and has the best effects for slowing your body and slowing your brain and slowing your central nervous system, to the point where it can be sedative and can help people with sleep as well. But I would not recommend it to use chronically for sleep because, as you know, your brain oftentimes tolerates things for sleep. I find melatonin and GABA to be a better combination. To each their own. If you want to use it every once in a while, that might be beneficial for you. But definitely, if you take a sedative dose at any of the Kratoms, don't do anything that would involve a high level of cognition and be dangerous. Meaning, don't drive, don't operate heavy machinery, don't go work on the construction site where you're going to be operating a backhoe. You don't want to be sedated when you do that. That's part of the reason I like green vein kratom, is because even though I might take an upper level threshold that would be more sedating, it's mainly just inducing calm. And I still feel alert and relatively able to combat whatever situation's going to come at me. That's another thing about kratom that is very different from things like delta-8 THC. You can drive on it as long as you are not high, so to speak, as long as you have not taken too much to the point where you are falling asleep. You, to my understanding, I don't know of any laws, but as long as you are not impacted mentally, you can drive on it. It's very similar to how there's the 0.8 threshold on alcohol. So alcohol, it has a threshold. The more you drink, the more and more the slower your reaction times get, the more inebriated you get. And then once you get to a certain point, the legal limit, which is 0.08, I believe, you get to the point where you can no longer drive. You are past the point of inebriation. You will not be able to react to stimulus correctly. Now, granted, we know that number can be wildly different for different people in reality, and the legal number is actually kind of flawed. I don't drink alcohol, but that's just what I've heard from a lot of the research. But going to that point, I'm saying that kratom also has a threshold. You can have some kratom, oftentimes stimulatory amounts of kratom, and be completely fine, even better off to drive, because sometimes you might be anxious driving and it would be worse to drive, or you might be in excruciating neck pain. And then you take kratom and now you can drive without neck pain, so you can actually focus on driving. But if you're taking kratom to the point of being sedated, you wouldn't drive drunk. It goes without saying, you wouldn't drive inebriated and you wouldn't drive under the influence of any other compound. So never do it with kratom or anything else. But that is one of the benefits to kratom, is you can still focus. You're still alive. You're still alert. The calming feeling is almost similar to me as taking GABA for the first time. For me, I built an extreme tolerance to GABA. At least that's what it feels like. I don't really get much out of supplementing with GABA except for nighttime sleep. I have to take a lot for it to work for anxiety attacks. But when I take kratom during the day, for calming or for pain, it doesn't wipe me out, but it helps me to be able to focus. Now, it is important to note that you can take too much. You can take too much kratom. Typically what will happen is you will get what's called the spins. You will get dizzy, you will get nauseous, and most likely you will throw up. I had this one time. I wasn't throwing up naturally. I was extremely nauseous and I was dizzy, so I made myself get sick because I was also shaking violently. And I had taken too much kratom because I was having a panic attack. So I had taken kratom and I had taken way too much and I got sick. And so that's why it's important to always find your dosage when you do these things. Just like a doctor, when they're starting you out on a new medication. For example, I just started a new medication. They started me out at 5 milligrams, and they knew that I might be sensitive to it, so they had me cut it in half, and 2.5 milligrams of this medication. Some people take 50 milligrams of this medication, and I started at 2.5. It is okay to start small, even if nothing happens. It's better than taking too much and being violently sick. that's all I have to say there. Sometimes it's better to just titrate up the dosage. Some people take it to the point where they go every 30 minutes or every 45 minutes. They'll take maybe 600 more milligrams of kratom, which, is 0.6 of a gram. But yeah, I mean, getting up to the 8-gram range is kind of past 8 grams, I would say, is kind of a hefty, heavy dose. And they consider anything under 2 grams to be a microdose, but that really depends on how sensitive you are. Say you take a sedative level of red vein kratom, or you take the sedative type of kratom, red vein kratom, and you only take 1 gram, but it works for you. Don't be like, oh, well, this is only a microdose. They only qualify it as a microdose. It works for you. That's what's important. But anyways, that's what I wanted to talk about today, especially with Kratom for anxiety, because Kratom is essential for my protocols when I have panic attacks of anxiety. Luckily, it's helped me to combat them with cognitive behavioral therapy, and now I don't need it nearly as much. I mainly just need it for pain. But thank you guys for sticking around this long if you did. If you would please give this video a thumbs up, I would really appreciate it. If you'd subscribe to my channel, I would love it if you do that. And until I see you next time, which is hopefully sooner than this wildly long break, I hope everybody has a great one.